What's going on, everybody? It's Josh, aka the Modes of Muscle, and I am coming at you with a solo Q&A. Welcome to the Next Up podcast. If you ain't been, welcome. Join, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let's get it right out of the business, right real quick. All right, so first question. Thoughts on squat shoes for leg day and recommendations. In the past, I used to be a very hard, fast, flat shoes, no knee sleeves, no bands, none of that. God, I have found that that is the exact wrong way of doing this. You almost need to find your way of being able to safely train legs and stimulate the most amount of whatever tissue you're targeting. So if you are wearing squat shoes for an RDL, not the play. But if you're trying to get as much knee flexion as possible, I would highly suggest squat shoes. So I think the squat shoes are brilliant. I think that they are fantastic. I think that they are something that has definitely changed my own personal quad development. This past, I started wearing them probably, I think November is when I started consistently wearing them. It's now April, and my quads definitely look different. So I definitely think that that is massive. My recommendation, I only have one. The TYR L1, or I'll say L2s just because that's what's out now. I have the L1s. They are fantastic. The thing that I like the most about the L1s, people talk about like the wide toe box and, the heel elevation, blah, 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 all that. I've never been able to wear a single squat shoe that the front of it bends. So like I'm able to still do calf raises and it not feel like I'm on a wood block the whole time. So there is some flexibility in the toe. And because of that, they're super comfortable. So definitely suggest getting them. I don't have a code. I wish I did. I know Justin Batterina has a code, so use his code. They're also kind of on sale like all the time. Wait until Black Friday and get them on in even bigger sale. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not going to go and get another pair because you never know when something will fall apart. Um, and it's kind of better to have two just in case. All right. Assuming all else equal, are there any differences in your fat loss approach for lifestyle? All right. So I did ask for further clarification on this question, just to be honest with you guys. And I asked if like PEDs are in play. So he did say yes, but we're going to go both routes. So we're going to say that PEDs are not in play, just to start. So my approach with fat loss on a lifestyle type of client is going to be a little more cyclical on the carb cycling, to where it's almost set to the days of the week. So I normally am going to ask that client like what their week looks like. When do they have like big meetings? When do they have big things for work? When do they have, hard deadlines for stuff? If they have a girlfriend, if they have a boyfriend, if they have a significant other in general, it doesn't really matter. What do they do? What do they like to go out and eat? What kind of events are going on in their life? Shout out Fresco Code Moses. Um, so it really does depend on who the person is and kind of what they're doing. But generally, early on the diet, I like a almost 4 on, one baseline, two higher days approach. Now, the idea behind that would be 4 days are going to be low. So lower carbs, protein's going to stay moderate. Fats might be up a little bit. Generally, I like to keep fats around 50 to 60 grams, just baseline for lifestyle people. They're not using PEDs. I want to keep that pretty constant just to keep hormones in play, and digestion kind of moving exactly the same most of the time. Now, as for trying to keep the pictures loaded up here or the questions loaded up here. As for the baseline day, carbs are going to come up a little bit. Normally, depending on the person, if I know that they could train pretty hard, I'm going to make this either the day before their leg day or I'm going to make it on their leg day. And then the last 2 days generally would be more towards the weekend. And that's going to be, they're going to follow their low day up until they go out for dinner, or they'll have an adjusted menu for like Sunday if they're not going out for dinner. Just gives them a little bit more freedom. Normally, I would have those last two like macro tracked. and just say like, hey, these are the macros for the day. I want you to follow exactly this, and we'll still be able to approach fat loss from a good perspective. So, like, if we were laying it out as a weekly thing, it would be like Monday low, Tuesday low, Wednesday baseline, Thursday low, Friday low, Saturday, Sunday would be your quote unquote higher days. Now, those high days are not going to be like 700 grams of carbs. They might be 400, where the low day is 150 and the baseline day is 250 to 300. It's not that big of a variance between the baseline day and the high day. The idea here is to give some freedom. And as we continue to process through this whole thing, we will remove that baseline day and run the 5-2. So just a little kind of fat loss approach. Now, if it's for the PED side, we might still do that same approach, because I do want the person to turn around and be able to have some freedom. Lifestyle is very different than a contest prep or even a mini cut, where you're trying to be in and out quickly. So the PEDs at play, or we'll call them all PEDs because they are performance enhancers, but things like Clen, ephedrine, yohimbine, SLU, MOTS-c, retatrutide, tirzepatide, even semaglutide. So pretty much the GLP family in general. Some SS31. I really like the conjunction of SS31, SLU, and MOTS-c. The reason is that if you think about it like an engine, right? The MOTS-c and the SLU are going to kind of supercharge the engine. So they're going to pump out more. Now, if you are redlining a car for an extended period of time, that engine is going to blow. So the SS31 is almost repairing the engine as it's going. So I like that combination. I found, for me personally, my energy is significantly better when I'm running all of those in conjunction, as opposed to just the MOTS-c and the SLU. I almost felt like I was kind of burning out. So my energy restored once I added the SS31 in, and it's something that when prep is over, I will be probably just solo running the SS31 at a little bit higher of a dosage, just to make sure that my mitochondria are repaired and everything's looking as good as it could be. As for Clen, I like to titrate up depending on how long the cut is. I like to titrate up pretty fast. That way we can get in and out of this pretty quickly. When it comes to lifestyle dieting, I do like to be in and out pretty fast. I think, 8 to 12 weeks is a long time, but I think that 8 to 12 weeks is probably the proper amount of time. Um, and you could do it in cycles depending on how large the person is. If they are obese, you can do an 8-week diet to a 2-week diet break to go right back into fat loss. This will allow their metabolism to kind of stay upregulated. Now, along with that, I am likely going to use some sort of thyroid medication just at a replacement dosage. I'm not utilizing thyroid as a way of burning fat. I think that's a very dumb idea. I think that's a play to turn around and get small, weak, and also just have a pretty shitty metabolism at the end of it. So my plan would be to use anywhere from 25 to 50 micrograms T3, depending on what the labs would say. And then also T4 in conjunction, especially if the person's on growth hormone, which I would suggest in this situation as well, just for the added lipolysis that we'll get from there. But that is kind of how I would cycle it. The dieting doesn't really change. In terms of cardio, I do like to push the cardio on the lower days, or on the lower calorie days. The reason is that we're already in a calorie deficit. We can make it more aggressive by just having a little bit more push from there. So that's definitely something that I'm a big fan of, and I think that it works very well. Like, I've found that if you have somebody who is willing to turn around and do an hour of cardio on a day that they have 2,000 calories and 150 grams of carbs, they are going to find a way to make a huge difference in condition week to week if they're doing that 2 to 3 times a week. So I definitely think it's something that's worth it. I think that it's something that everyone should kind of try. And yeah, maybe not try. Maybe not try. If you don't have a coach, don't do that. All right. Are the TYR squat shoes true to size? That's a hard one. Um, Personally, I am a 12 in shoes. I would have preferred to get a 12.5, but they don't have a 12.5. Reason I would have liked the 12.5 is because of the idea of the wider toe box. I don't want my foot to ever feel like it's like pressed up in there. And because it has the double straps, it could lock you down. So I personally just like that idea better, especially if you're using those and like a heel wedge. It's going to dump you onto your toes pretty hard. So you might be able to get a little bit more room out of it. But I would say they are pretty true to size. If you are in the sizes that you could half size up, I would suggest doing it. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. So that's my own 2 cents. Have you ever messed with DHB? No, just no. Best low calorie sauces and seasonings. Right. Seasoning should be no calories, in my opinion. And if you're looking for like a seasoning blend, the Mrs. Dash Caribbean Citrus is fire. I'm sure the Flavor Gang ones are good, but I've never tried them. I want to say Feast Mode is probably pretty good. I can't remember if I tried one of those or not. There's one brand that I can't remember that I definitely tried. In terms of uh low low calorie sauces and seasonings or low calorie sauces, it's really hard to say that you can go wrong with any of the Flavor Gang sauces. I think they're delicious. I wouldn't go with the basic Bish Ranch, and I wouldn't go with the like Chipotle aioli ones, just because kind of unnecessary. I don't think you need that. Um, but like the sweet poppy, fire. Flavor Dawn, fire. Thai sweet peanut, whatever it's called, fire. Definitely rip those. I think they're fantastic. Um, and then the G Hughes stuff. Personally, one of my favorite combinations right now is I'll do the G Hughes sweet chili with the G Hughes honey mustard. Mix a little bit of that with some water. Fire. Remember, these things do have calories though. So, like, if you're in a prep, weigh them, keep them consistent. What I like to do, especially with the Flavor Gang ones, is I like to add water to them. Um, so I'll use like 15 grams of it weighed, and then I'll add, 10 grams of water to it. The idea is to water it down a little bit because they are super sweet, but also like it goes further. Maybe I'm just a weirdo when it comes to the food stuff, but like I would rather go further than it be sweeter. Want it to cover all the food. Now I got the burps. All right, so next, if possible at all, what is required for someone to grow tissue in a prep? It is 100% possible to grow tissue during a prep. And there's a couple different reasons for that. Reason number one, you will grow tissue in a prep early in the prep because you have a lot of body fat. So that body fat is stored energy. If you are dropping your food down, you are training hard, you're progressing in the gym, there is no reason that you are not utilizing that body fat as a way of recovering. Think about it like this. How do we recover? We recover from food. We recover from sleep. Making sure that you're managing your sleep, and, doing what you need to in order to get your recovery from that. Second, if you're on, we'll scratch that for now. If you're training hard, you're progressing in the gym, that is generally a sign that you are building some sort of muscle tissue. You are causing the body to adapt. And then third, when we're saying that food is the thing that helps us to recover, and we have our stored calories as body fat, even though our actual calories coming in are going to put us into a deficit, we are going to start to burn the stored energy that we have. That energy can go towards recovery. I don't care if this is bro science. I don't care if nobody ever agrees with me on this. This is something that I firmly believe, and I've firmly believed every prep that I've ever done. And thus, I feel as though I've grown in every single prep that I've ever done. Now, at the end of the day, did I lose that tissue? Yes. You are bound to lose tissue in a prep if you are doing it in any way, shape, or form, not 100% perfectly. But the idea behind it is that you are trying to keep as much tissue as possible, and that new muscle tissue is going to be the first one or the first to go. So I don't believe I'll lose any tissue this prep. I have full faith in Joe that he's going to bring me in big as shit. So there's that. Now, the second way that you can build muscle during a prep is if you go from a cruise to a blast. You are quite literally putting yourself in a position to be able to grow muscle tissue because we are having increased androgens. We are going to be able to preserve more muscle mass. Again, with the stored energy coming off, that is going to fuel recovery. So as a stored energy starts to get burned through, you are training hard, your aggression is going up, your actual muscle mass or your muscle mass will go up just simply because you have a higher androgen load. You're creating more muscle protein synthesis just by being on steroids. So, utilizing those things, yes, you will be able to build muscle during a prep. I firmly believe that. I don't think it's a question. I think it's a hard fact. If you are somebody who disagrees with me, more than welcome to come on here and we can have a debate about it. I don't really care. But at the end of the day, if you are saying that in the beginning stages of a prep that you can't build muscle, you're probably just training like a pussy. That's and you could put that on your sandwich and eat it. I don't care. A little bit of lamb yak on there. All right. I posted the other day how it was a 3D spicy mango. Yo, that thing was fire. It wasn't so much of a like mango tahine. It was more like a mango and cayenne pepper. But honestly, God, it was really, really good. I really liked it. I think I answered this one, but favorite cycle and why. Favorite cycle I've ever run has been higher test. Um, I can give the numbers. I don't care. It was 700 tests, 420 EQ, and 210 MPP Deca mix. Reason I do the mix is I like the short acting and the longer acting. I find I get more out of the shorter acting in terms of just like true synovial fluid, I guess. Realistically, is like the best way to do it. I get the joint effects faster from the MPP. And then I use or I think of the DECA as more of an anabolic. So it's a longer term kind of helping to build up the actual strength aspect. Yeah, that's how I view it. I also always like to have Clennon a cycle. That sounds crazy, I know. But like when I'm dieting and I'm using Clen, I'm not going to use Clen in off season. But when I'm dieting and I'm using Clen, my recovery is better. I train harder, I train faster, and I recover in between sets faster. So I do think that if you're moving the same loads for the same amount of reps, but your training time goes from 2 hours to 1 hour 30 minutes, you're still making progress. You're still progressing. So keep that in mind when you are sitting there and training, that the amount of time in the set matters, but also the amount of time that you take to recover in between matters. The longer you take, the more you should be able to recover faster. Or you should be able to recover in between sets. You should be able to progress your loads. But if you're doing the same amount with less time in between sets because you're just recovering faster, that's going to also produce some muscle mass. Yo, Fresca really is goaded. All right. I guess we'll also go into this least favorite cycle. High DHTs, man. I ran a cycle that was like, it was a back end of prep, and I just felt like absolute dog crap. It was 200 tests, I think 800 masked, and 600 primo. Maybe it was 400 primo. Either way, way too much DHT. My estrogen was definitely tanked. I felt miserable. My joints hurt, and I was extremely, extremely dry. All right. Now, what week during prep should you start using L-carnitine? So the problem with this question is that this was asked by a natural. And then the natural crowd is not going to use an injectable. L-carnitine's bioavailability is shit orally. It is not good. So I genuinely think that if you're going to sit there and try to use L-carnitine as a natural, first off, make sure it's acetyl L-carnitine, but be careful because after you get over a certain dosage of L-carnitine, you will actually start to, I believe it was limit fat loss. It doesn't shut it down, but like start to limit fat loss, and you will not make as much progress as you should be. Now, let's just talk about what L-carnitine truly does, right? I had written some notes on this just so that I had everything set. L-carnitine shuttles long-chain fatty acids into the mitochondria to be used as energy. So why I think this is important is if you are not natural, right, and you're utilizing things like SLU, you're utilizing things like MOTS, we are already supercharging the mitochondria. So if you're adding in L-carnitine to the mitochondria or L-carnitine to that stack, your mitochondria are already working faster and harder, becoming more efficient or less efficient, technically. But then that long chain fatty acid is going to burn up in there a lot faster as well. So I think that there's a merit to that if you're utilizing the other things. Now, it gets depleted through low food intake, specifically red meat and protein intake. L-carnitine is an amino acid, so no shit, right? But when you're in a prep scenario, you are going to be eating less red meat. You're going to be having a lower food intake. So when it starts to get depleted and you're starting to eat less and your L-carnitine isn't there, yes, it's not shuttling the long chain fatty acids into the mitochondria. Again, in a prep scenario, we are able to, or in a PED using scenario, we are able to utilize less food just simply because we are going to have better muscle protein synthesis. You can almost push the deficit a little bit harder without the risk of maintaining muscle mass. So when you're sitting there and you're saying, all right, I'm supercharging my mitochondria, I'm adding in the L-carnitine to shuttle the long chain fatty acids, and I'm having my food lower, you're going to burn more fat. So I do believe that there is merit to this. It's also depleted through extended bouts of low calories, prep, chronic stress, which is going to be from training, you know, your life in general. Having lower energy is a stress in itself. Uh, Higher training volume. A lot of people in prep do increase their volume because they think that it's going to burn more calories. I don't think that's a great idea. But also, when you're doing more cardio, that is in a way, shape, or form some more training volume. So keeping that in mind. And then inflammation. We get inflammation from training. We get inflammation from stress. We get inflammation from fucking gut issues. There's so many ways to have inflammation that like you are bound to have this. So your L-carnitine will be depleted. Now, again, in a natural prep, you just have to be very careful about your dosage. You don't want to be pounding fucking 10 grams of L-carnitine. It's not going to help you. Something around like 2 to 3 grams is probably going to be your much safer bet. But all this makes it super difficult to say when exactly, because it really is going to depend on more so how depleted you are and how lean you are, realistically. I found personally that it worked better when I was leaner, not when I was fatter. Even though it's supposed to shuttle those long chain fatty acids, I don't think that that's going to be super beneficial. Now, some of the things that I did get from the injectable L-carnitine are I did get a little bit more mental clarity. It felt fantastic on my headspace. I was able to burn a little bit more fat, definitely, because I ran it in between junior nats and universe, which was probably the fastest fat loss I ever saw. There was a couple other things that go in line with that. Um, but that was fantastic. Now, I would also stack this with cardarine. So when you're taking the L-carnitine, you want to also take cardarine, which GW 510, 516 or something along those lines with numbers. But I do think that that is pretty much necessary. It's going to allow you to turn around and do your cardio for longer at a higher intensity. So you get to kind of push yourself a little bit better. But I would say generally, you're not going to be realistically depleted in a diet until about 6 to 8 weeks in. So I would say you don't need it until then. Once food starts getting pretty low, that would be when I say, hey, add in that L-carnitine. And again, for natural, 2 to 3 grams. For an enhanced, if you're doing injectable, you could realistically do anywhere from like 250 to 500 fasted and pre-workout. I find that that's kind of the sweet spot. You will see some return from that. So keep that in mind. If you got any questions about it, just shoot me a message. With that said, we are out. So thank you for your questions. Please drop them down below if you have more. Like I said, I'm going to try and do these a little bit more often. So anything you need, shoot it over.